Have you ever wanted to get involved in real estate development, but didn't know where to begin? Do you think real estate development is only for the large hedge funds or major corporations, the big guys? Or have you done some development in the past and are looking to scale up? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to the W.I.R.E.D Wealth and Real Estate Development Podcast. I am your host, Nick Smith. Get ready to have your mind blown and rewired as we discuss all aspects of creating wealth and real estate development. Good day, everyone. I wanted to welcome everyone back to the W.I.R.E.D podcast, where we talk about all things wealth and real estate development, where we build wealthy communities, wealthy families, and wealthy individuals through real estate development. This is episode 12, and I do want to, as always, encourage everyone to like, subscribe, share this, whether you're watching it on YouTube or whether you are listening to it wherever you listen to podcasts. I definitely want to thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. But the more you like, the more you subscribe, the more you comment, that goes such a long way in helping us get this message out. Today, I have a very special guest with me. His name is Patrick Bell. He is the Director of Business Development for the Metro Commercial Brokers with Coldwell Banker Commercial in the Atlanta area. Patrick has a background in elected government, as he served as a county commissioner for several years with the Fulton County commissioners in Georgia. And he's just an all-around great guy. We met at the Coldwell Banker National Convention in Chicago earlier this year, and we are definitely kindred souls. I'll say that. So definitely wanted to invite him on. Patrick, thank you, sir. How are you today?
Hey, Nick. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful, man. I definitely want to thank you for joining us. And if you can, give us a background of who you are, what you're doing, where you're from, and just give us a brief history of who Patrick is.
Well, thanks, Nick. I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida, moved to Forsyth County, Georgia in 99, ran for office in early 2000s, and got really involved in housing and land use and economic development, and worked hard in that arena. When I was finishing up my term, it was suggested that I go into real estate. So I went and got my license in November of 2012 and joined on with Coldwell Banker Commercial Metro Brokers here in Metro Atlanta, and have been there ever since. So I spent some time, earlier in my real estate career, just learning, getting involved. I tend to always do that. I can't just sell real estate. I have to get involved. So I got involved with our local board and with the Georgia Association of Realtors, and have had really the fortunate opportunity to help build our industry and work hard to protect our consumers. I fight every day for fair housing. I fight every day for affordable housing. I believe in my heart, Nick, that everybody should have the opportunity to buy a house. Anybody that's qualified, financially able, however you want to look at it. But I fight a lot of unreasonable rules and regulations, and it's a passion of mine.
Wow. So what did you do prior to real estate? I'm just curious.
Well, I was in the golf industry. So we had a company that provided products to the golf industry and golf accessories to NFL and NASCAR that had logos on them. So we did head covers, putter covers, and shoe bags, pin flags, all that kind of stuff, bag tags. Got involved in politics and sold that company. Got involved in politics just by calling our local mayor and telling him I supported an initiative that he was pushing, wanted him to continue to fight for the citizens to reduce some taxes. And that phone call started it all. That's how
Wow.
he recruited me into politics and helped me get elected. And then from politics, I moved into real estate.
Wow. No, that's definitely.
And I was a chef a long time ago. I went to my original profession was a chef. I love to eat, as you can tell. So when we met, you can tell I'm not a thin, lanky guy, and love to eat and love to cook.
Good deal. No, man, that is definitely a chance phone call that you made to the mayor. And it's amazing how small things like that can go such a long way in somebody's life. What you think is small ends up being kind of a turning point, in somebody's life. With your background, and we talked about this kind of offline, I was a civic government employee, local municipality, for Department of Redevelopment for my hometown. You were an elected official. By you being an elected official, by you being on the county commissioners, holding that county commissioner seat, what kind of insights did that really give you, or I'd say insights and or advantages did that give you as you kind of transitioned into the commercial real estate space?
Well, it opened my eyes up, as a citizen, if you will. We're also involved in what we got going on. Now, that's a real
Right.
simple way of saying, but I was involved in the church and I was involved with the scouts. My son was a scout. I was a scout leader. We had all that stuff going on, and you get in that grind, working, doing your stuff, weekends, mowing the yard, all that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
and what it really woke me up to, and I just left a meeting with our congressman, is how much government, whether we like it or not, really impacts our life. And it doesn't matter really what your social beliefs are. I'm talking about everyday life of business ownership, home ownership,
Mm-hmm.
able, as you said, wealth building. And I didn't realize how important real estate was to wealth building. I own my house, like everybody else. I bought a house. I was raising my family, doing my thing, but I didn't know how important owning a home and building equity in a home, how critical that was to the success of future generations.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, given the ability that you can send your kids to college, you can start a business, you can help your kids start a business, you can help a parent with nursing home needs or continuing care, or how much it impacts your life. It's amazing, and that's what I really like about real estate. Even though I'm in the commercial space, I do a lot of land deals. That's kind of where I've landed. It's where I've been led, I guess. And the knowledge, just thinking about how much we help people, and it's powerful. It leaves me speechless, as you can tell, because it's nothing like I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, this is, like I said, started off in government and kind of transitioned into the commercial space as well, because I was actually a residential real estate broker from about 2016 to 2021. So I started off on the residential side, and this is an industry, I don't necessarily understand why a lot more brokers don't get involved, with their, local governments, because as taxpayers, as citizens, you should be informed and you should be knowledgeable of what your elected officials are doing on your behalf. And I think some people kind of turn a blind eye. It's like, if I don't know it, then I can't, I can't hold anybody accountable to what I don't know.
And you're
So
right. You're right. And listen, this is not saying that every elected official is a bad person. I want to make sure that we're clear
100%.
about that. But if we're not watching government as the citizens and as the taxpayers, if we're not watching them, it will get out of control.
Very much
Spending
so.
will get out of control. Regulations will get out of control. Sometimes government forgets that it was created to serve the people and provide for the services that we can't provide for ourselves: education, public safety, fire protection, the courts, infrastructure, water and sewer. That's really the needs of government. You're an
Mhm.
economic development guy. That's a great service of government, to be able to help the community bring in good jobs, bring in new investment in the community. And those are all functions of government. But if we don't watch them, and again, it doesn't matter what your party is or what your beliefs are. If you don't watch government, it'll get out of control.
100%
And
agree.
our country's unique. Our governments are unique in the world, and it relies on citizen involvement and input.
Right. Well, I think that's the whole premise behind the democracy is it's
Yes.
the government that's run and led by the people. So without getting too political, I think some of that is being attacked in certain areas and arenas, but America's a strong country.
We'll
Oh
do
yeah.
okay. What we have to look at from a political perspective, it's funny this came up, Nick. I was just talking with my partner, and the ability to respectfully disagree
Right.
is gone.
Right.
And the ability to understand that somebody else's opinion and point of view matters is gone. And when we as a society lose the ability to sit down and discuss an issue and understand that everybody has a difference of opinion, and you have to take those opinions and mold them into a policy that works for everybody, we'll have a real problem.
Right.
And somehow we've all gotten sidetracked, and somebody's got us all cranked up or somewhere somehow. I don't know what it is, but we're not making any progress on a great country that has a lot of opportunity for us.
Right.
And not just talking about money. There's just a lot of opportunity to do what's important to us.
No, I 100% agree. 100% agree. Given where you are, you're in the Atlanta area, and Atlanta is definitely one of the hotter markets, from a real estate perspective, single family, and even, rental market. It's a booming area, right now. Population is growing, business is growing, a lot of things are happening. In your area, of course, as well as pretty much everywhere in the country right now, affordability is something that's definitely being challenged on the rental side, plus on even the buying side. Homes are much more expensive than they once were. Rents have gone up tremendously, in much of the country. Has your area, do you think you all have done a good enough job in trying to assist? Because we know that it's a market-driven phenomena. There's a thing called supply and demand. The lower the supply, the higher the demand is going to be. And when demand goes up and supply goes down, prices go up with it. That's just a facet of basic economics 101 from high school. But do you think, your municipality, your local government, or even on a national level, that we've done a good enough job in trying to keep those things at least under some control?
No, I don't. I'm embarrassed to have to say that, truly. But I don't believe my local community nor the state of Georgia has done enough to address those concerns. And affordable housing is a local issue. The federal government, I don't believe, with the exception of throwing money at it, can make much of a difference.
Right.
What makes a difference is if you have a community, and there are some in the metro area that are working hard at this. I'm proud to say that sometimes you might have to relax the standards a little bit because what drives home cost in most instances, there's only one moving part, and that's land cost.
Right.
Labor is a constant, materials are a constant, the permitting process is a constant, the cost, but land is the moving part. So as a government, I believe that you have to accept the fact that you need more density.
And that's something a lot of municipalities are trying to push away from.
Mine wants 1 acre lots. And,
wow.
We got property that's from 100 to 300 to $500,000 an acre. So
wow,
you start doing that math, and I believe that do I believe that you put a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch house next to $1 million home? No, I don't believe that. But I believe that in the community, in a good part of the community, not on the other side of the railroad tracks, I don't believe that, but somewhere in our community, there's multiple places to put affordable housing.
Right.
And not we've had some communities that have done rent restrictions, and that's created a problem. But that's a whole nother story. I'll tell you in a minute.
Right.
But the local government can control some of that. They can say that along this corridor, it's appropriate. We can put 1/4 acre lots or less. We can allow 1,200 square foot homes. We can allow a 1-car garage. We can allow vinyl siding. And we can give people a place to call home. Again, how do you deny somebody the right to own a home or even rent a home?
Right.
But to have a safe place to live and raise their family is troublesome. And there is a way to make it happen. Yes, the local government has to lose the elitist attitude. I guess that's a harsh way of putting it. I don't mean to be that harsh, but it is a crisis right now. And when there's a crisis, you have to take extraordinary steps. And you've got to be creative. You got to be understanding. You got to be empathetic. But more than anything, you got to be audacious and step out there and do it. And I don't see that happening. I see a lot of talk about affordable housing. I see the talk about the shortage, but I don't see a whole lot of action.
Yeah.
and that's disappointing. From a state perspective, what can a state do? They could create some legislation that would maybe tie the hands of these commissioners up that don't want to allow affordable housing. That I've got a saying, I've told you about it, we've talked about it. I believe sometimes we see socioeconomic engineering going on,
100%.
and
Modern day redlining.
yeah, and it's, without any other term, it's just not right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not morally right. It's not good for the community, and it needs to be addressed. And I hope that it is.
No, those are definite, valid, and appreciated viewpoints. From your area where you are in Georgia, and the seat that you sat in as a county commissioner, I'm sure you saw a lot of development proposals. You saw a lot of developers come before the commission as a part of the process. That's just one of the points of the process. What, as a commissioner, when you were on that seat, what kind of led you to think that this was or to believe that this was a good, viable project, a good, viable development, versus some that you saw that as soon as you saw them, or not, I won't even say as soon as you saw them, but when you dug down into them, what were kind of the key factors, that you were looking at to say, okay, I think this is viable, versus one that's not viable?
Well, I was a little bit more unique, perhaps, than others, in that I believe that the market dictates what somebody brings to market. So when a developer would come to me and say, "Here's a project that we believe would do well," that project may have been multi-million-dollar homes with an amenity center that rivals anything you'd find at a resort in the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
The pools and the clubhouse and the cabanas and all that kind of stuff. And I might think personally, wow, we're in a recession right now. And this was back in the recession. Is that going to be a successful project? But the reality is, it's not up to government and me and my government role to dictate what private business does. It was not illegal. It's not immoral. It doesn't harm anybody. And therefore, if that's what they thought they wanted to do, then, have at it.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe if it was a project, like I say, some that didn't like it here, but I was supportive, is affordable housing, small lots. Maybe maybe you could reach out your bathroom window and borrow a cup of sugar from your neighbor. But
Right.
but who's to say that's wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Who from a government perspective is to say that that's not appropriate? Because if it wasn't needed, they wouldn't need to restrict it. And I told our commissioners that just recently. I'm on governmental affairs. I was chairman of state and local governmental affairs for our state association of realtors.
Okay.
And I told the commission, they said that it's not what the people want. You don't understand the position we're in. It's not what the people want. And I said, well, I do understand the position you're in. I've been there. And I know it's a hard position. I know it's a tough decision. But the fact of the matter is, if the people didn't want it, you wouldn't need to regulate it away.
Right.
So it's an opinion of a few that is making impactful decisions on the many. And I don't think that they're fair decisions you're making.
No, that's definitely interesting insight.
It's when you're a commissioner, it's tough. When you're sitting up there and you've got 200 people sitting in the audience making noise and booing and carrying on, it's hard. I get it. It's hard. But when you live in a community of 200,000 people, those 200 people are sitting there. Well, there's 198,900
Right.
800 people sitting out there that either don't care or didn't know about it. But I have to assume that there's a lot of people who are okay with it.
Right.
But it seems like when you're in that small room with all that noise that, there's just this crowd of people against stuff. And that's when elected officials need to stop what they're doing and quit worrying about the next election and worry about what's right.
Right. Right. And you've touched on this term several times since we've talked affordable housing. Why do you think that term has gotten such a negative connotation, in the last, I would say last decade to two? I mean, when you hear affordable housing, people automatically think that you're talking about Section 8, low income, income-based housing, and even those, type of developments are not bad in and of themselves, but
Correct.
a lot of communities, as soon as you say the term affordable housing, they kind of snub at it. They want to do away with it. So why do you think that term has really gotten that negative of a connotation?
There's always groups on either sides of issues. And the ability to create buzzwords and control the narrative is the ones that are noisier, I
Right.
guess. So in my community, and don't get me wrong, Nick, I love my community. We got a great community. We have some great people here. We have great schools. We have great law enforcement. Our roads are good. Crime is low. Opportunities abound. But it's hard when you live in the community. We're the wealthiest community in the state of Georgia, the wealthiest county. We have the highest per capita income. We have consistently from top one to the third most expensive housing. I think the average home price in our community is just under 400,000 now. I don't know how to say it. I want to be kind, but at the same time, you have to call it for what it is, I guess. And when you live in a community of elitists, it's hard to change the direction of that ship. It's they move here and then they want to shut the gate behind them. And again, I got a problem with that. If you're a developer and you want to build a subdivision of 200 homes that are $1 million and you want to have a gated community, that's fine. That's allowed. You buy the property, you take the risk, and you do what you want to do. And those like-minded people can all move in that neighborhood. But you can't do that with the community.
Right.
And when elected officials do that, it's just contrary to, gosh, Nick, I don't even know the term. It's just contrary to being a good person.
Right.
And caring about your neighbors. And some people make more money and some don't.
Right.
But the family that struggles, and you have one part of the family, the one partner that is a waitress, and you got the other partner works at Walmart changing tires, doesn't mean that that they're any less than the CEO of a corporation that's pulling down $1 million a year.
Right.
They're no less or no better, actually. They're a human, and they deserve to live in our community, and it's incumbent upon us to create places where everybody can buy a home.
Right. Right. And a matter of fact, I mean, to me, that's what makes a community.
Yes.
It's the differences, the difference of incomes, the difference of ethnicities, the difference. I mean, our country is based on variety.
Absolutely.
For real.
And what makes a whole community? It takes everybody to create a whole community and create all of the opportunities and services and needs and products. Everybody's got to be involved.
That is 100%.
We have a lot of people here complain. They say that you go to a restaurant and there's no servers, or you go to the grocery store and they only have one checkout open. And I take a step back and I think, well, you guys have eliminated any hope that somebody's going to live here that can afford to be a cashier at the Kroger or whatever. And they certainly can't drive from the next county over to do that. So it's a real conundrum for me. It really is. It's such a, I have to keep my mouth shut a lot. I'll just tell you that.
I understand. Again, by you sitting on that county commissioner seat, because we do have a lot of aspiring developers and people that are interested, in the development space. To me, I represent and work with a lot of my local municipalities on, property that they own, that they want to get back in the hands of developers. But I've noticed and I've learned just by observation, a lot of for-profit entities do not really understand government. And there's a clashing, or there's a friction that takes place a lot of times when, developers, they'll come to me and they'll say, listen, I can buy this property, I can pay cash, and I can close in 2 weeks. And I tell them, I say, listen, the municipality owns this. They don't care how fast you can close, and they really don't care how much money you have. They really want to see, what your plans are for the property. When you would have developed, because I'm sure your county probably owned property, during your time and during your tenure, on the commission, when a developer would propose certain things for certain sites that you would have? What were some of the mistakes, I would say, that you saw from some developers when they approached a municipality or your county about plans to do something on certain properties and certain sites?
Well, you said it perfectly. The corporate entity, the developer, doesn't understand perhaps that the government is not interested in a profit. The government is not interested in closing next week, as you say. What they really have to measure is what is the benefit to the community.
Right.
So when a developer comes in, they've got to be able to talk about, here's our vision, and that vision achieves this many jobs. This vision will create sales tax revenue. It takes the property and puts it back on the tax rolls, so there's property tax involved. The package of benefits to the citizens that the government has to weigh. It has nothing to do, well, I won't say it has nothing to do. Very little has to do with the terms of the sale.
Right.
You know, in private industry, you go to somebody and say, I got a full price offer, it's cash. They don't want any due diligence period, and they'll close next Friday. And that's powerful.
Hit the jackpot.
Yep. We love those. But to a government, it's just not. And the government is something that it's hard for us to grasp sometimes. We complain. I complained when I was a commissioner. I've been self-employed pretty much my whole life. And when you make a decision, you do it. And I would complain that it takes government so long to do anything. It took me a while to realize that's intentional.
Mm-hmm.
That government moves slow. It's what our founding fathers created, the different branches of government, and then the different houses, if it's a state issue. So you have a House of Representatives and you have senators. Some states call them different things, and then our federal government has the House of Representatives and senators and all this back and forth. But it's supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing, because then you know that it's intentional, that it's thought out, it's not knee-jerk reaction, or it's not somebody sitting in the governor's office or the mayor's office ramming stuff through. So the other side of it is you have to be prepared for it to take the time.
Right. And that's been one of the challenges with some of the developers, for-profit developers, and just investors, period. You know, because for them, it's all about speed. It's all about how quick we can go. But, you know, like you said, government, you have to realize when elected officials make a decision to allow something to transpire at a property, whether it fails or whether it succeeds, the government is going to take the brunt of the responsibility. Especially when they own the property. They don't have to be, they're not involved with the management of it. They're not involved with the day-to-day operations, but you allowed this to come here and it's not working.
And we got an election coming up and we're going to come get you.
Exactly. Exactly. So there's a lot of different facets and factors that play into that. But I still think, you know, to me, that's one of the kind of gold mines in real estate is if you can really establish good working relationships, you know, with your local municipalities, because all of them have property and none of them, quote unquote, want to sit on the property. That's not the government's intention, but they're waiting on the right developer. They're waiting on the right person or entity to come along and say, hey, we have this idea. And another thing I see, and you can tell me if you ran into this, you get some developers or property owners, buyers, interested parties that come in and they don't know anything about the municipality that they're trying to work in.
You know, you're so right. We both talked about how I sold some residential real estate and you were in that. And when you go to a listing appointment, you know, so many real estate agents will say, I can sell your house and get you the most money for it. But you may not realize that the person's goals are not the most money. Right. It may be, we need to get this thing sold because I've got a personal need. I've got college tuition due for my grandchild next week, or my child, or I've got some medical bills that are coming due, or I want to help my mom get into a new place, or we don't know. And to make those assumptions is bad for business and it's bad for your client. So when you transition that same thought process over to what we're talking about, dealing with municipalities, is they forget that the goal is a benefit to the citizens. The government has a responsibility to make a decision that's to the best benefit of the citizens. So you got a developer that says, I'll give you $1 million for that old building. And then the next one comes in and says, I'll give you $500,000 and I'm going to turn it into this. And I'm going to do this and it's going to be this benefit. And again, we're going to create some jobs, or we're going to create some housing, or we're going to create tax revenue, all of those things. Well, now they're answering the questions. And the smart developer will engage someone, and I'm going to give you a plug, Nick. They would engage somebody like you who understands the ropes and can help navigate that system and has the relationships. And, this is a relationship business we're in. So somebody that can help guide them through that and understand through discussions with the elected officials or the economic development director or department, what's the goals? What do you want to see here? And then answer those, you'll win.
Right. I tell people, and I had this conversation recently with a gentleman. He wanted to come and put kind of a mixed use property, or kind of almost like a community center type of property, on a piece of land that I have listed or had listed at the time. And, he said, he'd even be interested in potentially donating that property over to the city or something like that at some point in time. And I just had to point blank tell him, I said, listen, this particular city is closing community centers. So that's not going to be attractive to them, really at the moment. But you're so right. I mean, some people kind of come in blind, and you can't do that with development, especially. It's just a lot of risk.
Not on economic development opportunities or redevelopment opportunities. It's a partnership, and it's like anything else in business. You need to listen to your customer.
Gotcha. Man, I know you get a lot of phone calls, based on the properties that you have listed, and just your involvement. So I'm sure you get, phone calls from seasoned and serious developers, plus your novice developers. And I'm sure you can kind of tell by the conversation if they're a novice developer or not. For somebody that really wants to get in the development space, what kind of advice or what kind of tips, would you give somebody that wants to really, really and serious about getting in the development space?
We're in a really fortunate time that you have to learn. You got to study what you're doing and learn the ground rules. And we're in a really good time because, most of the meetings of our elected officials are recorded.
Right.
So what I would always advise somebody to do is go to the agendas, try to find where other opportunities similar to what you want to do, and go watch those meetings and listen to the dialogue between the elected officials, the staff of the city or county, and the developer. And you will learn very quickly what's important to the elected officials. You'll learn what's important to staff, and be able to then craft your presentation to where you're going in. And even if you're brand new, you'll be able to craft your presentation, maybe not answering all the questions, but at least steering the presentation where it lets them understand that you know what their needs are. Because and now what they want somebody to solve their problems. We're problem solvers. And you got to recognize, a lot of people discount the county or city staff. And that staff, let's just say it for what it is, they can be your friend or they can be your foe. And if you go in there and make a fool of yourself, you won't get any traction. Those staff people work hard, and they know what's going on, and they know what flies and what doesn't fly. And you need to give them I don't mean you just get a carte blanche, give them level of respect, but they're professionals.
Right.
And the comment like, well, you work for me or something like that just doesn't fly. You just got to go into it with a cooperative attitude and understand that there's different parties involved. You got your elected officials, you got your staff, you got the public, you got the media watching you. It's going to be in the paper tomorrow. You're in there making a presentation, so it's going to be in the paper. So just learn those different parts.
Man, that is true good advice. And I know we could talk literally for hours. I do want to, again, thank you so much for your insight. And I'm definitely going to have you back one of these days when I make it down to Atlanta. We'll do it in person.
Would love to.
Time, for sure. But if somebody is interested in the Atlanta market, or they just want to reach out to you, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
I like to talk to people, so they could call me right directly on my cell phone. That number is 878-878-9358, or they can call you and you can get in touch with me.
That is true. 100%. I definitely know how to find you.
Yep. And that would be fine, because I'd love to work with you, Nick. You're a consummate professional. You love your industry, and people will be lucky to have you represent them.
Well, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. And as we close, I'll close with this kind of thought/question. There are tons upon tons, millions of residential real estate agents, in our profession, because there's two sides of the coin, residential versus commercial. And I ask this to a lot of my commercial colleagues and brokers, because I'm curious to get their take on it. But why do you think there is so much fear of the commercial side versus the residential, and the residential side seems to be more so saturated than the commercial side of it?
Well, most people, I would say the masses, are becoming a real estate agent. They've probably bought or sold a home, so that's kind of something they're comfortable with. The other fact about residential real estate is more regulated than commercial real estate. The consumer has a lot more protections. So, it's easier to get, and I certainly don't mean this to be disparaging. It's easier to get into the residential space. When you find your lane, if you find that commercial is where you want to go, you ease into it. There's just so many unknowns about the commercial. There's so many different components, whether it's land for development, land for investment, retail, warehouse. It just goes on and on, all the different components. And each one of them has a little different need and knowledge that you got to bring to the table. That's why a good commercial agent that studies their industry is such a benefit to their client.
100% agree, man. 100% agree. One more time, give us your phone number, the best number to reach you at.
It's 678-878-9358.
Well, Patrick, it has been a pleasure. I definitely thank you for your time. Again, this is episode number 12 for the Wired Wealth and Real Estate Development Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Smith. We talk all things about building wealthy communities, wealthy families, and wealthy individuals through real estate development. Please like, subscribe, share this podcast if you've gotten anything. Patrick, again, I want to thank you. You're truly a professional as well. And I thank you for our friendship and relationship. And we're definitely going to get together one of these days.
Very good. Honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please share this content with someone else who would benefit from it. I'm looking forward to having you with me on the next episode. Now go out and create some wealth and real estate development.